Ladies and gentlemen and others, welcome to my channel. I recently watched the Wonka movie and I loved everything about it, so I'm going to tell you all about everything that makes this movie great without spoiling anything. First things first, in case you didn't know, Wonka is a musical. I mention it because I didn't know, because it looks like Hollywood is ashamed of musicals these days. Now, I'm not a big musical fan, so that wouldn't have stopped me from going to see the movie in the first place. But a little bit of a heads up is always nice. The movie stars Timothée Chalamet as a young Willy Wonka who's come to town to create his own chocolate factory. Wonka is directed by BAFTA award-winning British-American director Paul King, who previously directed Paddington. He also co-wrote the story for Wonka. Both Paddington movies are great, and there's a lot of the DNA of Paddington within Wonka. It's a 100% feel-good movie aimed at kids, and it knows exactly what it is. I used to joke that Timothée Chalamet is my favorite Pokemon, but there's no denying that this is a very talented actor who's made some really exceptional good choices with the roles that he's chosen in the past. I first became aware of him as an actor when he played opposite Armie Hammer in Call Me By Your Name. He also took on the starring role of Henry V, the King of England, in the Netflix movie The King, as well as portraying Paul Atreides in the most recently adapted Dune, directed by Denis Villeneuve.
My father came, not for spice, not for riches.
Cut! Wind guy! I told you guys, he shouldn't be in windy movies. Freaking told you.
Timothée Chalamet is perfectly cast as Willy Wonka. This movie really plays to his strengths. There's even a scene where he needs to fly into the sky holding onto a bunch of balloons, and apparently they didn't need to do any special effects to achieve that. Hugh Grant has been having quite a career resurgence lately. He plays the one single solitary Oompa Loompa in the movie, and is probably my favorite character excluding Willy Wonka himself. Not only that, but he also manages to steal every single scene that is in, and also a crap ton of chocolate. Last time Hugh Grant had this much fun, he paid somebody else for it. Timothée Chalamet always brings a certain element of charm to all of his roles, but quite honestly, when I went into this movie, I was kind of thinking, who even asked for this? So my expectations were set appropriately low. However, this movie, the art direction, actors, costuming, and musical numbers all surprised me quite a bit.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
In terms of story, it's an origin story of Wonka coming to town to create his own factory, and the people that he meets along the way that will help him to achieve that goal. The main villains within the story are a bunch of over-the-top chocolatiers who have a monopoly on the town, and they've put all the kind of rules in place to prevent anybody else from ever challenging them. So this sets up a very clear and simple good guy, bad guy dynamic for little kids, but it also creates a more complex narrative for adults who are aware of the evils of capitalism and monopolies. This is best shown in a scene at the start where Wonka goes to the village square to put out his wares, and while he's allowed to display his items and while he's even allowed to distribute it to the people, the chocolatiers immediately step in and prevent him from being able to make any kind of profit on what he sold. The nods to more adult understanding of the world of Wonka is obviously there. We have corrupt businessmen, but we also have corrupt policemen. And as a metaphor, for instance, the more bribes that the police chief takes, the fatter he becomes. Because in this world, the bribes are paid in the form of chocolate. But everything here is played off with a certain level of charming absurdity. So even when there's confrontation between the police chief and Willy Wonka, and the police chief then proceeds to physically assault him, it's played off as a rather funny, charming joke that we're all in on. It's kind of cartoonish violence that kids would understand, that it's not something that's being encouraged. Unfortunately for Willy Wonka, these aren't the only people that he needs to contend with. But I won't spoil that part of the movie because this is an unspoiler review. Suffice it to say that Willy Wonka ends up in debt, and he needs to pay off this debt first before he can open up his own shop. It's not really clear whether Willy Wonka is actually a magician or a trickster god or something like that, because he has a tiny little suitcase that acts as a little factory that allows him to create his own chocolates with all kinds of magical ingredients. We find out that Willy Wonka's been traveling around the world finding the most magical ingredients, and those ingredients aren't just there to make the chocolate taste better, but it's also there to remind people of the most magical moments in their life, or to create the most magical moments in their life. This goes a long way to explaining how Wonka's chocolate became so popular in the first place. Willy Wonka, of course, has his first duty needing to escape from his indentured servitude, for which he enlists the help of Noodle, a little girl who's also been placed into servitude. Noodle initially tries to warn Willy Wonka to not sign any contracts, and they become quick, fast friends. Two of them work together to work out a plan to get Wonka's chocolates out to the general public, which involves avoiding the police at all stages because he's not allowed to sell chocolate without a permit. But he can't get a permit unless he has a shop, and he can't be at a shop unless he actually has money to pay for a shop. Willy Wonka has overcome a whole lot of setbacks in order to achieve his dream. However, fortunately for him, he's the world's nicest person, and he also meets a whole bunch of people that like him enough to help him to achieve his mission. Having motivated characters is important, and if you're giving us an origin story about a character, then you need to tell us what the character is all about. The motivation here isn't something that is just, let's find out how somebody did the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, but more about what the character needs and what the character wants. There's the reason why Willy Wonka wants to build a factory or a chocolate shop that goes beyond just supplying people with something sweet. So as you can tell, I really like this movie and I can highly recommend it. Hey, so wow, you made it all the way to the end. You know what would be really sweet? A like, share and subscribe. It would be like you were giving me a whole box of chocolates. Also, it does help the channel out massively and I really would appreciate it if you could. Thanks again for being here. Check you on the next one.